You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Hey, everyone. It's time for another episode of Hard Foul with my brother Michael and myself, Jim Quigley. We haven't chatted with you since the Celtics went on the West Coast, where they went 3-1 on a very impressive trip. And then yesterday's wild game against the Pistons, where a lackluster effort and a team that was playing in mud in the first half, terrific third quarter, and then somehow survived the Pistons. And, the title of being the team that finally lost to the team that lost 27 straight. They were able to avoid that and continue their winning streak at home, and sets up an interesting, I think, game tonight against Toronto. Mike, where do you want to start? I feel like the Pistons game, there's so much to discuss that maybe we table that for a second and we talk a little bit about the West Coast and what they did there, because I do feel like that was important. It was impressive. Most points they've scored over a 4-game span on the road in team history. Really should have gone 4-0. And I just thought in a lot of ways it was really impressive, based mostly on how they had played previously on the road going into this trip. So I don't know your thoughts or where you want to start.
So, last time we were on the pod, it was after the Sacramento game. We definitely talked about that third quarter and the impact of Porzingis on both ends of the floor of that game, and how it just opened it up for Boston with his shot making and shot blocking, really. And that was kind of the turn of the tide of that road trip, where the Celtics got really hot the next two games. Yeah, the Clippers game, there's not much to really break down. The Clippers didn't really show up to play, if we're going to be honest. I think every player on the Celtics scored. It was just Celtics were hot right from the start. The Clippers didn't have Kawhi, but I don't think it would have mattered if they had Kawhi, with how good the Celtics were shooting, and just maybe it was tired legs that game with the Clippers, but they looked disinterested and awful. The Lakers game was really impressive because Anthony Davis showed up to play. He's really dominated the Celtics on the offensive end. The Celtics didn't really have an answer for him. They couldn't make stops. When they made stops, the only way to really slow them down was put them at the free throw line. He even hit a big three. The Celtics got off to a really nice start, an early lead, and the Lakers bounced back and made it a game. And it felt like for a little while there that the Celtics were going to lose their grip on it. And last year they would have. And I think that's the biggest difference between this year and last year, where the Celtics, come out hot, blow a lead, and then wouldn't get it back last year, or just would find a way at the end of the game to turn the ball over and make mistakes. The Celtics in that fourth quarter just took over the entire game. They really were getting whatever they want. They were making stops defensively. It was really impressive. And quite frankly, they're just on another level compared to the Lakers when the Celtics are at full health. And it was impressive, Jim. And going into the road trip, we talked about their road woes. But now, I think they have the third best road record in the NBA. A lot of teams are struggling on the road in the NBA. So 9-7 is a decent record to have right now. And they'll be tested on the road again shortly after this weekend against San Antonio. But it was a good road trip. Really impressed with the way they played in that road trip.
Yeah, no, that Lakers game in particular, I'm glad you spent some time on it. We've talked about how the Celtics' philosophy defensively has been to allow, a little bit more three-pointers. But what they don't allow, and what they've done a really good job specifically on that road trip, is the corner three, which killed them a ton last year, particularly in the playoffs. That would help off the strong side corner. Did it a ton against Miami. And it would just kill them. And they just kind of taken that away versus teams. And the Lakers they start now more of a defensive alignment. They put, Russell on the bench, and they put in Vanderbilt and the other guys around them, where it's just more defensive minded what they're going after. And the Celtics were able to grind it out. The Lakers did a pretty good job in the second half and the second quarter of taking away 3-point shot from the Celtics. And they found different ways to score and to move the ball and to get good shots, get the ball into Porzingis. You watch a game plan defensively for the Celtics as that one kind of, the game moved along. They guarded Anthony Davis with smaller guys all game long, whether it was Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. They were willing to give up those points. What they weren't willing to do was help on LeBron's drives until it became Porzingis at the paint. They weren't going to come off shooters. And I think it really restricted an already limited offense that the Lakers have to just Anthony Davis, and that was it. I thought that game showed the difference between a championship contender and a pretty good playoff team, which is what I think the Lakers probably are right now, without another move. But it was a really good road trip. I mean, the way they really should have gone 4-0. They lost that tough one to Golden State, came back, responded without Tatum in Sacramento, then responded without Porzingis, which they haven't done well with on the road at all against the Clippers and at full strength. Outlasted and really in a game that at the end of the day really wasn't that close either against the Lakers. They pulled away and won by double digits. And that just really extended, when you talked about the homestand, going back to those 5 games, and then these 4 where they were 8-1 going into setting up for last night, which was interesting.
The one thing I took really from that Lakers game too is the Celtics are so much better when they're going to the paint. When their threes come off, it's rhythm threes. When they're actively attacking the basket, they're a really, really difficult team to contend with. And we've seen, we saw it against Golden State where they weren't really doing that in the second half compared to the first half. And I really think we saw it in the second quarter against the Lakers where they weren't attacking the basket. And then that third quarter against LA, they just came out similar to last night when we talk about Detroit. Then the threes are rhythm shots. And they're just different because they're off of drives, they're off of ball movement. When they are intentional about getting Porzingis the ball around foul line extended, which is something that they should feed that guy as much as possible, they're just such a different team. When Derek White and Porzingis and Tatum, when these guys are going to the hoop, it just opens up so much. And I think that's also what makes them so different from last year. When their threes weren't falling last year, they would lose. This year, they have that component that other teams don't have, where they can get to the rim, they can get to the free throw line. And that's something that is making them a much more, making me believe that they can actually go all the way and win this thing this year compared to in years past when I feel like they rely too heavily on the three and they didn't have anything else to go to.
Yeah, the Porzingis factor is just huge. So when you're able to play that 2-man game, and you saw it last night down the stretch with him and White, and we can get into the Pistons games, but we saw it, going them inside to the Lakers, or you're running it with Tatum. Brown's gotten more comfortable with it right now. To be able to run kind of that pick and roll 2-man offense effectively as they can. And I know his 3-point numbers aren't great, Porzingis, but his shot looks great, so I want him to keep taking it. I mean, even when he misses, it's like right on line, and it looks like a guy shooting a tennis ball into a Nerf hoop, even from 3-point line. And when he catches the foul line extended and is able to just turn around and shoot over it's just kind of amazing to watch. It's not something that, as Celtics fans, we're used to. I don't think he played at this level up until last season with the Wizards, where he started to take off. And I think the Celtics are really seeing the benefits of that now. It's just, you're right. It's the way they can do things because of him is just so much different. And I also think, I love Marcus Smart, and this isn't a knock on him, but the ability, his subtraction means more addition of Derek White. And you see what he's capable of doing within this offense. And it doesn't feel like there's any shot that's really ever forced by him. It always seems to be in rhythm. I know he had a tough first half last night, but in the fourth quarter and overtime, once again, he was spectacular. And let's lead right into last night. This is a historically tough spot for teams. You come back from the West Coast trip, I think specifically for the Celtics, you've played 9 games now that have been kind of high-level games. All those games at home are, with the exception of the Knicks, were against teams that have kind of played well against you over the last 2 seasons. Playoff contenders went out west. Playoff contenders.
The dominated the Celtics last year.
What's that?
The Knicks dominated the Celtics.
Yeah, but the Celtics have kind of dominated this year, even going into that game. So I think it was a little bit different feel for that game. And then you also had, and this isn't something that people really think about, but they weren't home for Christmas. Came back home either that night on Christmas, or that next day. Then you have all those family responsibilities that pull at you because you run around for the holidays on some of these guys, especially older guys like Horford and Holiday. And you just wonder, what's in their mind and what's in the tank. And you kind of saw it, especially in that first half. The effort wasn't good. You alluded to it multiple times last night. Joe Mazzulla said it after the game. The assistant coaches said it at halftime. And I thought they only really played one great quarter, which was the third quarter. And I feel like they let it all out that quarter. And because, they have so much more talent than the Pistons, and the Pistons are the Pistons, they were able to climb back from 21 and eventually win in overtime. And credit Detroit for not completely folding in the fourth. I thought they were going to do that. I thought Detroit was going to completely fold in the fourth. They made some big shots, got some big-time offensive rebounds, and stayed in the game. But I think the element of Detroit playing as hard as they can over the last couple of games, the Celtics absolutely sluggish. It created, great theater last night, and an exciting game, and wasn't one of their best games by any sense. It's probably one of the worst games they played all year, but it was kind of exciting and fun to watch. You have to feel for the Pistons. You just have to feel for the Pistons right now. But that's, in some ways I'm glad it turned out the way it did, because it made it a lot more interesting than it would have been.
Yeah, I mean, I get it that the Celtics look sluggish and whatnot, but I also feel like there was an element of, we're going to roll the balls out tonight and we're going to win.
I think
we don't even have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tatum wasn't even going to the basket at all in the first half. He was just settling for threes off the dribble. The possessions were just lifeless and meaningless on offense. There was no ball movement. I mean, at one point they were 4 for 24 from three, with no effort at all to get the ball inside. And you have Porzingis out there. That never makes sense to me. And I don't think
it was entertaining. Porzingis was fighting for position either, much in that first half to get the ball.
Oh, they had Alec Burke come.
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham obviously showed up to play. Jordan Ivey did. Durant. Pistons put in a good effort, and you knew the Pistons were going to put in a good effort. If you watched them against the Nets the other night, Pistons probably should have won their last 2 games. So it's a tough season for them.
Yeah, that's putting it kindly.
Yeah, Al Horford, I thought, on the defensive end last night was, I guess you could say, sluggish.
He looked tired.
Really struggling against Durant and against Jordan Ivey. That's something to keep an eye on. I think that the Celtics have had issues with the defensive glass at different points this season, depending on the type of center they're playing against. We started against Charlotte with a similar type of center to what Durant is. And so, thinking about how the Celtics match up with players like that in the future, they've struggled, as I alluded to in the past, with Reed from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
These athletic center types.
Yeah.
And Al really does have a hard time on the defensive glass. And he had Porzingis out there with him and Tatum. So, maybe if the trade deadline's looming here and the little money that you have to move around, maybe you want to look at a big whose specialty is, cleaning up that glass for moments like last night, because that's what kept the Pistons in the game. The Pistons were missing a lot of open shots, except for that one. Like after the timeout in the third quarter, the Pistons came out and hit 3 straight threes when I thought the Celtics were going to go on a run to go up by like 20. Outside of that, they weren't hitting a lot of their threes. They were just getting multiple opportunities at it. And that's really what kept them. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even Derek White looked like crap in that first half. He looked like he couldn't get out of his own way. He was falling on the floor.
Airballed.
What's that? Yeah, he airballed a layup, And it's, I mean, I know people don't like to hear this stuff, but, he's away for a week. He's away at Christmas. He comes home. He's got really young kids. You wonder, these life does factor into some of these road trips. I think tonight's going to be really tough, Mike. You heard Tatum last night saying his ankle is still swelling up. I don't know really Jaylen Brown's availability. I assume he's going to play, but he's listed as questionable. Porzingis is doubtful. Al is out. Holiday's questionable. Holiday could probably use a night off. I don't think it makes a ton of sense, to play Tatum tonight, but he is Tatum, and I'm sure he's going to try to play. And you're coming off the back-to-back. The home winning streak, I'm sure it's something that's important to them. They want to keep alive. But at the same time, it feels like end of December, early January type of game, and on the second night of a back-to-back, I would not be surprised one bit if this is the night that the winning streak at home ends and the Raptors get them tonight. It would not shock me at all. It just feels kind of.
I don't think the Raptors have a shot.
You don't really?
No way. No, Raptors can't shoot the ball. They don't have a chance. The Raptors can play their best game. They simply can't shoot the ball. This is why they can never beat the Celtics. They can't compete. Siakam will score.
Detroit's like 29.
Not like the
3.
The Raptors. This is year in, year out with the Raptors. And I would be really surprised if Tatum doesn't play. I think winning at home, I think, is what is a priority to this team this year, going into this year. And I think this home winning streak actually means a lot. I was reading today, it looks like Brown's going to play.
Okay.
What I was questioning is whether you want to have Porzingis play.
I don't think he
2 nights of back-to-back.
No,
I don't. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with Tatum as far as his ankle. I don't think he looks hurt.
Oh, really? You didn't?
So
see, I thought
it's hard to get.
You didn't think he was coming up short going to the rim? Like I thought that one dunk attempt on the fast break, I thought he barely got off the ground where they called the foul and he didn't finish. I thought his drives late where Cunningham was able to block his shots. He wasn't exploding to the basket like he usually does. He usually uses his body and strength. And I felt like he was almost going up softer than we usually see him throughout the entire game going to the rim. And I thought it was part of the reason we saw him settle for so many shots from distance early in that game. I
didn't think that was the reason. I thought it was effort play.
I thought his finishing at the rim since he's gotten hurt has not been as good. And so and if he's saying it's swelling up, I don't see a huge reason to play him tonight, but maybe you're right and I'm wrong. That's entirely possible. We'll have to kind of wait and see. Well, the line tonight, for those that are interested in those sort of things, have the Celtics favored by 6.5 as of this podcast. I guess that will change based off of who's available. And then we'll go from there. But I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And go Celtics. Let's see if they can continue that home winning streak. And we'll talk to you all soon.